I thought I'd bring up this topic to, go over with you and see what you think. I don't think we've actually spoken that much about it, even though we've had a few takes on it. And I guess the take here really is that, firstly, how much importance do you believe, and do we believe, that a player should place on their legacy within their league? And I guess we've touched upon this in a few takes. One was probably the Bradley Beal take, where I alluded to him similar to Mitch Richmond, and how he's sort of an all-star who has had a great career, puts up great numbers, but has sort of really not achieved much in the win-loss column or in the playoffs for a long time now. After John Wall obviously left the Wizards, and he's almost like a bit of a forgotten man. And I think it's sort of, you take this a bit step further. Another one is like LaMelo Ball. All right, I'd hate to be LaMelo Ball going down that Bradley Beal path. Look, I like the Charlotte Hornets. I think they're a franchise that would love to see them have a little bit of success, right? Hell, I really like their uniform, right? I think they're up there in the top five uniforms in the league. Yeah. So little things like that, you sort of want to root for them. There's no reason to root against them in a sense. But they're going nowhere. And LaMelo Ball, ultimately, and we had a take, like I said earlier as well, that if he had gone to T Wolves at the number one pick, we're probably having a whole different narrative right now on the T Wolves. Look, you know what? The T Wolves would be a better team, okay, with LaMelo Ball replacing Anthony Edwards. Okay, that's something that I feel is a no-brainer. Look, maybe that's a take in itself. Okay, obviously, if they had gone to the Warriors at number two, okay, he's probably got a ring. Hell, LaMelo Ball's got a ring. And let's be clear, when the Warriors won that year, Wiseman didn't even suit up. Okay, so little things like that. And I guess the take here is, how much emphasis do you think players should place on their legacy to be in winning situations and in right situations? You can't always guarantee winning, but in better situations versus simply staying put.
It's a big question. Um, because I think like I was going to actually mention it in my next take. Funnily enough, it's all about expectations, right? So what are our expectations of these NBA players? And I think when you break it down, just to get to the NBA is them defying expectations, irrelevant if they are the first pick or the 60th pick or an unsigned G League affiliate. They exceeded expectations just to get there, right? And the amount of what ifs and hypotheticals that you have surrounding team makeups and timing and luck and injury and all those things are astronomical. So maybe what you're referencing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this about what intent do players have to be successful? Is that kind of where you're framing this? And is it players taking it into their own hands to demand trades, have input in team acquisitions to be more competitive? Is that your reference, or?
I think it's more so that, look, I think I'm gonna take a bit of a stab here, that if I'm an NBA player, if I'm a basketball player, professional basketball player, there's probably a few things that I need to consider. Okay, one is obviously money. Let's be clear, money is a big one. Okay, you're gonna go where you're gonna get paid to a greater extent. Okay, and that's why situations have occurred where players will leave clubs because they're not feeling they're getting paid what they deserve, and so on and so forth. Players will make some interesting decisions like not taking extensions. Ones that jump to mind are like Oladipo recently, Isaiah Thomas before he hurt his hip, and those sort of stuff. These players are having all-star years, turned down extensions, and then suddenly ultimately lost a lot of money on the table because they didn't feel they were being offered what they were worth. So look, money is obviously a big motivation. So don't get me wrong there. I think there's a difference though. So let's say Bradley Beal, he's been with the Wizards his whole career. Okay, he's obviously made a lot of money there, but he's an all-star, and I think there's a difference between say him and say like Udonis Haslem. Okay, so Haslam obviously has been with the Heat his whole career. He's not an all-star. He obviously is a role player. So his options are a little bit less limited. Okay, his options are a little bit more limited there. That there's probably other clubs that would take him, but he's not going to move the needle necessarily. Going to another club to tip them over the edge here. I guess what I'm sort of saying here is that let's go to Lamelo Ball again. Okay, if the Hornets don't make the playoffs in the next say 3 to 4 years, Okay, and now they've taken a huge step backwards. Okay, they're taking a huge step backwards. There's no idea where the Miles Bridges situation is going to play out. Hey, maybe they're going to get Wembanyama. Oh, wow, that'd be great, right? We had to take on that earlier as well, But the key here is that if they don't make the playoffs in the next 3 to 4 years, how much importance should LaMelo go? I'm wasting my time here, okay? Because he could be a highly marketable, popular, and a player that's remembered for years to come, okay? But not in a situation that's currently playing out in Charlotte.
Look, the contract thing, you mentioned Isaiah Thomas, for example, and his big issue was he tried to stay loyal to the Boston Celtics, had, a top five MVP season, and then obviously gets traded and his career takes a real big downfall. DeMarcus Cousins is another one, gets a couple of injuries, never gets a big contract again. I think that's why these rookies opt in, right? So LaMelo is going to get to his rookie extension, and he's basically going to look at it and say, I can lock in another 120 million, right? And then by the time that he's 6, 7 years into a career, which for any job, if you told me, hey, like do your job for 6, 7 years and you've got 200 million, I'm probably logically locking into that, irrelevant of whatever fulfillment I get. I mean, there's an age component. I think young players are going to gravitate towards money a lot. And it's when they get to 27 to 33, that kind of prime range that we talked about before, that's probably when they start to reevaluate and say, oh, I've got enough money now. I probably want to try to win. They get locked in, right? So these contracts, these big contract slots, there's egos involved. You can't have three max contract players really on your team anymore, right? It doesn't facilitate it for that kind of level of success. But I think it's also like level of acceptance. I've talked about this in the past that there's 30 teams in the NBA and one wins every season, right? And we absolutely scrutinize players that are on the second and third and fourth and fifth place finishing teams, right? If Jason Tatum never wins a ring, for example, he's a big what if and he never had anything done with his career. And he might have the same career earnings as LaMelo Ball by the end of it, but we're not going to scrutinize LaMelo Ball really that much because he never got there and then almost had it. So, I think it's going to differ player to player, right? The Lakers game's a really good example today. I saw on Twitter, the missed call on the Jason Tatum foul at the end of regulation, and LeBron cracks a tantrum, and everyone was like, "Oh, why is he cracking a tantrum?" Rah rah rah. And it's like we really pick a lane with some things, and then we just ignore the hypocrisy of it. Where LeBron is just stat padding, but then he actually gives a hoot about winning a game, but then we criticize him for overreacting to not getting a call and the regular season doesn't matter, it's just playoff success, but he actually could have had a game winner today. And it's just I think to get a player to encapsulate what they're actually thinking is the most difficult thing because every player has different agendas, right?
I think
So
but
when
look,
you've heard Brad Beal talk on podcasts, he talks about trying to build something that Damian Lillard's trying to build with Portland, right? And we all probably think he's delusional for doing that, but then we also chastise players for jumping teams all the time. So, I think he's getting paid. He has an ambition in mind. That's probably why he's doing it.
one name on my list here and is Kevin Love. I don't know if you can think back all the years when he was first few seasons in Minnesota. He was a beast. This guy was putting up numbers that I don't know, almost like Jokic were putting up, less the assist to a certain extent. He was grabbing like 30, scoring like 26, 28 points a game, grabbing like 15 rebounds, and he was a real beast there. But I think K Love is a champion. He's an NBA champion now. All right, he went over to went to the Cavs. Probably similar story where Bosch went to the Heat. Okay, and he took that sort of role and made that sort of change, and he's remembered so differently. And I guess that's the sort of maybe a real good example there to just consider here that what if K Love never left the T Wolves? What if he averaged 25 and 12 rebounds for his career? But where would he be now? Like, how would we remember him? How would we think of him? And I think that's the part where it's sort of really, I don't know. You're right. Every player has their own sort of thoughts and how they want to, what path they want to take. But it sort of feels that some of these players here, regardless, well, these all-star players, okay, because these are all-star players, they will go anywhere and they're going to command the money. So it's sort of like what sort of narrative um, do they want? And I guess I'm curious, sort of, how much they really, it feels like some of them don't really consider that as much as they probably could or should.
Well, I think once they're locked into their contracts, it gets tricky, right? Like, uh, what is LaMelo Ball supposed to speculate at this point? He's still on his rookie deal, which is only paying him, I think, 20 or 30 mil, and then he's logically going to get. He knows that he's going to get offered that contract extension, and he's got two choices: like leave the market that he knows is going to get, like he's going to turn down a guaranteed 100 million plus to pursue a legacy that, in another weird sense, he actually still has time to do, right? So he can take that rookie extension and then have his little midlife post that. And, there's definitely elements of probably comfort, right? Like, I've lived in this city for 7, 8 years. I don't want to leave. Like, I think that's a real thing as well. And there's certain athletes that don't have their own brand beyond it, right? So LeBron has his own brand outside of whatever team he plays for. So he's really a mercenary in that standpoint. And KD is at that level, and Kyrie is at that level. Steph could be at that level, but I think there's a lot of organizational like history there where, they gave him a chance beyond the ankle injuries, and, he's had so much success. Why would he leave? I think legacy, maybe to bring it full circle, maybe legacy doesn't come into their minds as much as we talk about it, because they're very present minded. They have a very big mentality of the next game, have to put the last game behind us as the next game. They can't really spend their career doing what ifs in the real time. They have to kind of wait until they do that. And that's why so many basketballers now doing documentaries and podcasts. So perhaps their legacy contemplation at this point is actually quite minimal. And they really are just focusing on, doing what they can in their current circumstance. And when contract negotiations come up, I feel like 80% of the time they pick the money. And, obviously tampering conversations are probably the other 20%, right? The only reason why people move teams is because they've kind of rearranged it to do that. And yeah, I think that would probably be my full circle answer on that, is that I actually don't think they think about it as much in the real time.
Yo, this is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist in giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.